Dzogchen Today podcast. Welcome to Dzogchen Today's podcast. This series of Dzogchen in everyday life is designed for us to get more familiar with the Dzogchen view and what it can bring in our daily life through personal sharings and short practices.
Hi everybody, thank you for joining us. My name is Marie-Laure and I am your host today. In this third episode of the series Dzogchen and Daily Life, we will continue to talk about Dzogchen and the relief of emotions on a daily basis. And to talk about that today, I'm very glad to welcome Mila Khyentse Rinpoche.
Hello.
Hello, and Damien Brault.
Hello.
Hello, thank you very much to both of you for being here with us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So to start with, let me introduce you very briefly. Mila Khyentse, you are a trained scholar, consultant and teacher of Dzogchen. You have been traditionally trained in the Himalayas and in Europe, and you are a lineage holder.
That's right.
That's right. And Damien Brault, you are an art teacher, artist and author. And you have also been teaching Buddhism for many years in French-speaking countries in various different kind of settings.
Yes, that's me. Correct.
Good. So in the previous episode, actually, we began to discuss the principle of how the so-called disturbing emotions work according to the Dzogchen tradition. And this episode, we will go a bit deeper on the subject and see what are the specificities of Dzogchen about the emotions. And particularly between comparing maybe with the Western approach of emotion and the psychological approach and the specificity of Dzogchen. So maybe, Damien, could you tell us a bit more about these specificities?
Okay. So it's very much two different approaches. We can say they are kind of complement each other. In the Western psychology, you will tend to analyze emotion, to understand their origin, what kind of creates this emotion, personal story, and how do they manifest, what kind of effect they have on our life. And the perspective is to heal them, sometimes to ease them. That's an approach. The Dzogchen approach is a more direct way, meaning it's not just to analyze emotion, it's more to look at it very directly, in a very fresh, immediate,
Straightforward way.
Radical way. It's a radical, meaning you go to the root of what is the emotion, meaning you don't focus on the manifestation of the emotion, but more on its nature, and its nature. What is it? What is it? It's a kind of way of completely turning the mind in a different perspective, inside, you can say. And what you will see if you do that, thanks to the Dzogchen training, Dzogchen perspective, Dzogchen view, when you do that very directly, you will see that you find yourself in a space of peace and clarity. So
Directly.
Directly, yes, because that's the very nature of the emotion. When you look at them, otherwise you just taken by the manifestation, stories, scenario of the emotion.
Yeah, you mean you dive into it and then you lose yourself.
You're lost, completely lost.
You're
into
caught
that.
by the story of the manifestation.
You tell yourself the story the emotion is telling to you, and you kind of identify to that, so it becomes your whole reality, your whole life.
One really interesting thing you said is that, if I understood correctly, is that the psychological Western way is to understand the story of the emotions, and the Dzogchen is to look directly at not their story but their real nature, what they are.
What
really.
is it? What is it? It's funny because that's a kind of inner voice that has a tremendous importance in our life, but we never look at who is talking, at what is it.
Definitely.
Exactly. And usually, in this tradition or even in the Buddhist tradition, we say that a thought is not a fact. So an emotion is not a fact as well. And this is all that is about. Yeah.
That's a tremendous relief that meditation can bring, is to see that the difference between fact, reality, and emotion about fact and reality. And we distinguish the two.
It's a kind of translation of the word.
Exactly.
The reality.
Definitely, yeah.
So everything will appear differently if we see it that way.
Very, very, very interesting. And so it brings, as you said, more peace, right?
Peace
Yes.
and clarity.
And clarity.
Exactly.
Which is, I understand, a first important realization that can be achieved by the practice.
Yeah,
of
sure.
Dzogchen.
It's the first step. Yeah.
It's the first step. So could you tell us how is it possible actually because I understand that it's pacify all the emotions,
yes,
all passions,
all
I would say in
all passions,
Buddhism or Dzogchen. So could you tell us how is it possible for all emotions to be pacified? How can we do that?
It's really simple, in fact, because as Damien said, they are not real on their own. They are not something that is real. It's just a composite reality. This reality, the emotion reality, is composed by different and several mental events. So they are not real on their own. They look for us. They look real, but their nature is not real. So. The way Dzogchen practice works is that we will try to recognize, first of all, we will try to recognize this aggregation of what we call emotions. And then we will try to go deeper, as you said, directly, not in trying to understand how it works, because...
Not to think about it.
Not to analyze it.
Exactly. And then directly, as we said in the tradition, we will cut through the illusory substance of the emotions to see directly, to perceive directly the real nature of the emotions. So in this way, when you do that, you realize that the shallow aspects of the emotions, which are for example, the bodily reactions, the sensation you have with the emotions, just fade away really, really quickly when you do that. It means that when you concentrate directly onto it, then this is exactly the point. When you do not ask yourself too many questions about what is there or what is it or what.
It's a matter of concentration.
It's just a matter of concentration, of focus. You focus directly onto the nature of it, of the emotion. And then slowly you see that what you thought to be the emotion, so the sensation in itself, just fade away, disappear. And then there is a tremendous aspect of your mind you maybe didn't know before, that just arises, and it's really peaceful.
And
it's a peacefulness, a giant peacefulness,
right?
and a clearness, something that is completely amazingly grounded in your experience. So in this way, you repeat this process again and again and again, and then you see that it's not with, for example, it's not just with the anger that it's working, but it's also with desire. Maybe we'll talk about all the difference with the emotions later, but you see that it's also with ignorance that it works. So it's not something that is related to just one emotion,
specific emotion,
in particular, but with all the emotions. So you finally see that with the training, then all the emotions just disappear, and you find a really steady state of peacefulness almost all the time.
So without even wanting it, it's really like by repeating the practice that little by little, this stability rises, right? Okay.
And then it's also because you are connected to a really important fact in the mind. It's the openness of the mind. And this is really important in this process to recognize the real nature of the mind.
Openness or vastness, we can say that, because you are not caught in the story. You were saying, Damien, at the beginning, so it gives space.
Exactly. You can call it even spaceness.
And it's already there. It's not something that you fabricate. That's it's not this kind of voluntary effort. It's more to see what is.
To rediscover it.
Yeah, to rediscover it, because it
awaits
there.
you.
It's waiting for us.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yes. So could you, Rinpoche, tell us a bit more maybe on this set, of this trilogy, if we can say, of emotion, object of perception and sensation, just to understand a bit better the mechanism, how it works.
The aggregation of how the emotions work. In fact, the Dzogchen tradition, as well as the Buddhist tradition, say that they are not existing on their own, on themselves. It means that an emotion is a composite. It's composed by what we call perception, the way I define, the way I see, the way I perceive the reality. So we talk also about the objects of reality. So this is one of the mental events. Then it's also conditioned by the sensations, the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral sensations that I have according to all my experiences in life. And then it's the next one, which is quite important in the process as well, is the classification, is the judgment on this sensation. For example, when I have a really pleasant experience, a really pleasant sensation, I will say to myself, I will just think that this is a really good or a really positive experience.
We validate it by comment somehow.
Yeah, exactly. I am validating by the thought that the sensation is here. So I make a bridge between the discursive, as we say, the discursive process with the sensation process. So in this way, emotion, which is the result of all this process, is something that is not right here from the beginning whenever an experience pops up in my mind, in my daily life conditions, for example. So if we can take a concrete example, we can talk about I don't know. I am in a room and I see objects in this room, and then when I just watch one object, I just see one object, and I define it as okay. It's not really
Does it
nice.
Really appealing?
No, it's not really. This one doesn't look really, really good in taste, for example, and then I have immediately what I can call a negative sensation. So it's unpleasant. I have an unpleasant sensation, an unpleasant experience with this object. So the first one was the perception. I perceive the object. I can see the object. So I can define it. I can see that this object is different from the surroundings.
Discriminated, yes.
I can discriminate. I can identify this object, and then there is in the process there is the second step, which is the sensation. Okay, this object is unpleasant. So I have this sensation. I still don't have the thought that okay, this object is unpleasant. I have the sensation it's unpleasant. And then the next one is the thought. I say to myself, okay, this object is really not nice. It's I really hate this object. So it's a validation of the sensation by the thought. And then at that time arises what we can call an emotion. This is related to hatred, for example, or to anger from me to the object. And at that time, this is the result. The result is the emotion. So it's not a long process because it's really quick.
I mean, we never pay attention to that.
Exactly.
Normally, so it needs real training.
Exactly. And this is why when you say that in the beginning, you there is a little difficulty for you to see that there is all these events at the same time. But they are here and they compose the what we call emotion.
So slowly with the practice, we can really start to see all these mental elements very clearly.
Yeah, you unaggregate all the elements one by one, and you see them really clearly. And what you see is that, okay, this element on its own cannot create emotion. The other element on its own cannot create emotion. So you see that they are to be together
to create
create what we call an emotion.
Very nice. So it leads us to this next question of how to integrate this practice, because I guess there is we need to practice that before.
Sure.
And how can we integrate it in our daily life or in our usual routine? Like, for instance, when I go to work, or if I can, if I need to take some time to concentrate in the subway or in my car, how?
Well, yes, we have some very busy life. We have plenty of things to do all the time. But if we look carefully, there is a lot of gaps, many gaps. When you go to work, when you are waiting for something, sometimes you are following a very long PowerPoint presentation. There's lots of gaps if we are careful about that.
The last one was the worst.
PowerPoint from hell. Yes. And if we really want to practice that in our daily life, we can use these gaps skillfully by just, it takes only a few minutes, remember some kind of situation which will bring us some strong emotion or just some emotion. And to remember that and to look it from the present. And sometimes a story, emotional story, which was very strong and very real and substantial for us, is just a memory, just something happening
that
in the mind.
Already happened.
And sometimes we even don't remember all the details. But when we were living that, everything was very deep, very serious, intense.
Vivid.
And but now, what is it? It's like a fleeting dream. So we can do that in many situations.
You do the reference of the practice we did
yes.
in last
I was
episode.
Coming back to the practice of the previous
in the previous episode
exactly
where we recalled
that was a presentation of meditation. No, it's more presentation of action or integration of that, because
of this practice.
Of course, meditation is not for the purpose of meditation. Meditation has to shine in our daily life. That's the point of having a formal meditation, is to help us to be more familiar with the space that practice is giving us, and to let it manifest more and more in all the aspects of our life.
And that sounds very nice to be able to use this practice in as you were saying, in our daily life in the true metro, because we don't have time basically anymore.
Exactly. Yes.
So
and we don't need to do anything special. Thing from outside. We don't do some esoteric ritual or any specific posture. It's just thinking, what we do all the time, but we orientate our thinking in a useful way.
And we are concentrated.
Exactly. Exactly. And it will bring some release in our daily life. Because also, yes, what I'm thinking of in the past is now more serious, but maybe right now I'm taking away by my thoughts about what's happening now, and I'm taking them very seriously. So this kind of perspective will bring a lot of release, a lot of peace and clarity.
Okay, so actually, yes, in the previous episode, Rinpoche, you gave us a basic practice for emotions. Do you think it would be possible to go to deepen a bit this practice?
Yeah, sure. There is an extension. Actually, there is several extensions of this practice, but one of the extension is to work on specific emotion families. It means that when we will remember a special event, special conditions related to specific emotions, we will try to develop this practice in a really specific family of emotions. For example, we were talking about anger. So I can decide for example, for a few days, I will concentrate onto angerness. I will concentrate onto hatred. So I will just recall all the experiences I had about hatred, and then I will switch to desire. I will do the same. I will recall conditions, past conditions that made desire arise. And then I will concentrate again in a really direct way, in a really concentrated way, really focused way onto the emotion, but without adding any commentary, any judgment on it, just trying to remain concentrated directly onto the emotion. And then, for example, the next 3 to 4 days, I will concentrate onto ignorance. So with these three are the main emotional basics for our functioning. So we will concentrate in a row, in different rows, like ignorance. Then I will switch to desire. Then I will switch to anger, and so on and so on. So this is the, we say it's the clarification way. It's to make ourselves clearer with the kind of emotions we have all the time, and to recognize the patterns of the emotions we have all the time in our daily life. This is really efficient. It works really well.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you very much for sharing this precious exercise. Thank you. So I hope that you who are listening will try it at least once. But hopefully. We know that once is probably not enough.
We will do that, huh?
Yes. We will try
and see how effective it can be for you personally. So do not hesitate to come back to us with your feedbacks or questions if you have any. And thank you again to both of you for staying with us today. And
Thanks a lot.
It was really a pleasure to share this podcast with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for our listeners, stay tuned. We will have some more very interesting topic coming very soon.
You can find more episodes on your website, dzogchentoday.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us on your favorite podcast app and share it with your friends. We will be pleased to receive your feedbacks on podcast@dzogchentoday.org.